Hey everyone, welcome to the Business of Sports show. Now, every now and then we want to bring you a very special guest that might be a slightly different than our normal. So today, the fact that we've got this guy on it is huge for me because I'm a big fan of the program SAS Who Dares Wins, but also, you've got to be in awe of those guys on the front line. Today we have none other than Ollie Ollerton. Hi, Ollie.
Hello, Matt. How you doing? Nice to be on the show.
Thanks for coming on, mate. Hopefully you're well and fit.
Mate, I'm on fire today. You know what? I've just got back from my run. I've got a usual route I do around the house, and I've knocked 40 minutes off my PB. So mate, I'm on fire. I'm absolutely buzzing.
Mate, it's obviously because you're on the podcast today. That's what it is.
I have to go back, mate. I got up late.
Fair enough. Extra gear found.
Yeah, no, that's good.
For anyone who doesn't know you, who hasn't seen the show or anything like that, introduce yourself, mate.
Yeah, I'm a former UK Special Forces soldier. I came from the shadows into the spotlight around 2015 on the hit show SAS Who Dares Wins on Channel 4, which I bounced all over the world with. I did 6 series on that show around about 6 years. I'm now no longer part of that, but I'm doing SAS Australia with Ant Middleton. I'm also the CEO of a company called Breakpoint, which I'm sure we're going to address and talk about throughout this session. And
we've got to, mate. There's a book on it.
It's already there. And I'm a best-selling author. I've got 4 books actually currently out there, another one on the way. So yeah, and really, at the end of the day, what is my passion? My passion is changing the way people think and changing the way people, getting people to perform to the best of the best version of themselves. That is my mission in life.
Fantastic. We'll touch on your special forces career in a minute, but I love that bit of out of the shadows and then into the limelight, because I suppose years ago, special forces soldiers, you probably never knew. You could be walking past one and you never even know, because let's face it, you're regular guys at the end of the day. But I suppose the closest people would ever really get to knowing one of them is probably someone like Andy McNabb, who still kind of lives in the shadows, and you never know. So kind of, why did you step out from the shadows into the limelight then? That must have been a big call, really.
Yeah, it was a big call, and really, to be honest, this is why initially they were struggling to get people on that TV show. And I was in the right place at the right time. It was actually Foxing, one of my best mates, that got the intro for the show and then sort of pulled me in. But really, the fact that we weren't going to be pixelated, our faces weren't going to be pixelated. A lot of people turned away from that because they didn't see the longevity in it. There's been a lot of shows before in the past where it's been a one-off, this, that, and the other. And really, for us, we took the gamble. Because at the end of the day, once you've revealed your face, you can't then go back, even as a civilian soldier, if you want to call it that, former special forces soldier, you can't then go back into doing undercover work. There's a lot of work you simply can't slot back into doing. You just wouldn't be available for it. Now, for me personally, before the opportunity for the TV show came about, I returned to the UK after bouncing all over the world, trying to find my purpose in life, trying to find myself. And I came back with the sole intention of starting my company, Breakpoint. So as soon as I got that opportunity for the TV, it was simple for me. How do I get exposure? I've been questioning myself how I'm going to get exposure for this business. And I was banging my head around, how do I do it? It's especially when you haven't got any money whatsoever. That opportunity came about, and I just saw that as an opportunity to really get that exposure for free. I had no idea it was going to last for 6 years and then keep on going then to SAS Australia. But really, it was a vehicle for me, and it's done me proud.
Absolutely, and mate, it's absolutely fantastic. But let's kind of wind it back then. So how did your career start? How did you do you wake up one morning and go, I'm going to be special forces, or kind of what's that journey that you go on?
Yeah, I tell you what, the seed was sown for me in 1980, and I was 10. Now, when I say that, a lot happened for me in that year. And when you read my book, or anyone that has read my book will understand at 10 years old, I talk about it a lot. I was attacked by a chimp in that year. And in that very same, which was a life-changing moment for me, it really, it's my earliest childhood memory at 10, because it was so traumatic. And also that year, what else happened, quite a significant year for me, is when the SAS stormed the Iranian embassy in London, which was across the TV, everything, usually you'd have that place blanketed off so you couldn't see it. I've known, but Margaret Thatcher, who was Prime Minister at the time, wanted to show the world, or send a message to the world not to mess with us, not to mess with the special forces. And I really believe that seed was sown then. Subconsciously, that seed was sown then. At 14, I lost all kind of interest in academia. I was decent at school, but all of a sudden I just had this passion for the military. And I can remember at 14 years old, which I now look back, and it's quite a decision at 14. I've made that decision. I am joining the Royal Marine Commandos. They were, as far as I was concerned, the hardest sort of military unit out there, and I wanted to be at the front line. And that was it really for me. That was the passion. I lost all interest in everything else apart from doing that. 18 years old, I joined the military. And I still had this sort of, I can remember going to the careers office, and I walked in the careers office and they said, right, because it's hard getting in the Royal Marines. It's one of the hardest selection processes in the world. And, I can remember the woman there saying to me, so if you did pass Royal Marines selection, what do you want to do? And I opened the center of the book that they'd given me previously, and it was a picture of a Special Forces frogman swimming in the ocean next to a mini sub. And I went, I want that. And I can always remember she looked at me and she laughed, and she went, everyone wants that.
Yeah.
That was that seed that was sown. It was almost like, which would,
the challenge had been thrown down of going,
exactly that, Matt. Exactly that. And that would be a pattern that would follow me for the rest of my career. People doubting me would be my fuel for success.
Yeah.
But really, when I got into the Royal Marines, I then, I went off to Northern Ireland, grew up extremely quickly in that time there. And then went to Iraq, came back from Iraq, and I was just absolutely flat when I came back from a war zone. I couldn't handle life as a peacetime soldier. It just bored the hell out of me. I joined to be in the front line, be in combat. And I just decided, this dream of the Special Forces started to dwindle, because our minds are always looking for the path of least resistance. And when we can't see the route to our path or to our goals, our mind tells us it can't be done. So really, the easy option for me was to leave. But my officer turned me around, made me do a 180 on that. And he just said, look, if you leave, you're going to regret that for the rest of your life. And I do believe it's not what it takes. I didn't have the confidence, but I borrowed confidence off that man that day. I felt I had a duty to do so. And that would be something that changed my life. Again, it pushed me into doing Special Forces selection. I was one out of a 5 out of around about 280 that started the selection process, and I was one of 5 that eventually passed that course.
Crazy.
So that dream came to fruition, and it was incredible. But for me, I'm probably the first Special Forces soldier I think, or I've ever heard say this. I got to the Special Forces, it was the top of, I was at the top tier of the military, and still that desire, that's something that was missing in the Royal Marines. It was still missing when I joined the Special Forces. And
really?
Yeah, I wouldn't understand what that was until a long time later. I didn't understand the meaning of what purpose meant, and really for me, a lot of that, there was a lot of, I had military history within the family. That's one thing. My grandfather was a major in the Royal Engineers. So there was that, and that sense of honor and everything else to represent and be in the military. There was also that, but the thing is, a lot of it, and I reflect a lot on this now. I was doing it for the audience.
Right.
I was doing it because I was chasing the image of what it looked like and how cool it looked for other people, as opposed to what it really felt or meant to me. And I know that could sound, a lot of people, and I still reflect on that a lot, because in some degree we're all doing that, some more than others.
That's really interesting, and I think to kind of come at it from that angle, you look at everything these days, and there's that phrase, the Instagram life. People doing things just because of what it looks like to other people. You
Mm.
know, going on fancy holidays and oh, it's the concert thing as well. And I always compare things to the concert thing of going, you can sit there and you can watch a concert,
Mm.
but you look around and everybody's got their phones up. They're all
Yeah.
recording it. They're all looking at everything on this little screen rather than just going, and it's happening right in front of you. And I think a lot of people do that. A lot of people kind of get sucked into that trap, and yeah, I think social media has kind of really blown that up even more. Then, not just for
Mate, 100%. I mean, let's
mm,
call it, it's egogram, isn't it? Not Instagram,
yeah,
it's egogram.
yeah,
You know what I mean? We
yeah,
actually, exactly that thing that you're talking about, Matt. My wife actually said to me, look at this concert. I think it was my niece had gone or something to a concert in London. And she was obviously, we was watching it through Instagram, and everyone with their phones. So
yeah.
they're actually enjoying it. They're making sure that everyone knows that they're there.
Mm,
I mean, and that just typifies what people are like. There, and this goes even further because people are quite prepared to compromise their own health and well-being or mental well-being, or compromise themselves just to make sure that everyone thinks that they're doing something cool, looking good. Keeping up with the
mm.
Joneses. When
Well,
it's
I saw an article yesterday. In fact, just a headline saying about some teenager who had fallen off a cliff or whatever because he was taking a selfie.
oh God,
It's bonkers, isn't it?
yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous, and I think the problem with that, look, there's always going to be an element of that because no one
Mm,
just stands there and hangs out the dirty washing. I mean, there's a lot of stuff I could have included in my books, but it's not there for reasons that I don't want to share that depth of my
of
story.
course.
But there's always an element, but what you've got to be careful of, and like you said, social media is to blame for this, is the fact that if we invest too much in the person we're trying to be, we become the byproduct, and the person you're creating or the image you're creating becomes the main show. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And really, that person, you becoming the byproduct, is a path to nowhere. That's a path
Mm.
to depression, anxiety, lack of confidence, everything. So I think it's a really dangerous place, and as long as we can be aware of that, and like I say, it's just being aware of the fact that stop pleasing the audience, start
Yeah.
doing things for yourself. I always say this, that my life really changed when I stopped doing what was expected and start doing things for myself.
Mm.
That's
That's a
when,
big moment.
yeah, yeah. We've got
And
deep,
I think
haven't we, on this?
we have, I mean, we're only a few minutes in, and straight away, I mean, we'll be talking about Freud and everything in a minute. But let's kind of go back. Let's go back because I've actually had the pleasure of meeting Rusty Furman a couple of times. So the old man with no gloves and in the SAS raid on the Iranian embassy siege, and kind of I just kind of quizzing him on some stuff previously. I mean, that was a big moment. That you kind of you hear a lot of the stories now from what happened in World War II when the regiment was started and things like that, and some of it's unbelievable. So you went into the commandos, you cracked that. Everybody talks about SAS selection. I know
Yeah,
we'll talk about the TV show in a bit because that's a very small snapshot.
yeah.
Because talk us through what selection actually is, because it's not a week long or a couple of weeks or a couple of episodes. It's a long old process, isn't it?
Yeah, one thing I'll say about Special Forces selection, and one thing I'd like to make clear on this, because is that I did SAS selection, then I went on to further training to qualify. So I was SBS,
Yeah.
Special Boat Service. So I just want to make that clear. Now, SAS selection isn't about so much as training you to be this amazing SAS Special Forces soldier. It's about seeing if you have the minerals, seeing if you have the mental robustness, giving you some basic skills to be able to join your team, because that's when the real work starts. Now, there's a lot of people, like I mentioned around about on my selection, 280 people. It's a 6-month process, but then there's 3 months continuation training after that. So really, essentially, it's 9 months. Now, people ask me, is it a mental or physical thing? And I always say, look, I can't do that. That's my trigger finger. About that. You know, it all
Yeah,
starts here. So there is no separation between the mental and the physical. You know, at the end of the day, you know, you've got to have strong mental robustness to do any of that course. And that's even turning up. But initially, that course is all about thrashing you to your lowest ebb. Almost selection is like all the way through is pretty much thrashing you to your lowest ebb. And then it's almost like they come to you and say, right, give me everything you've got when you've got nothing.
yeah,
And it's how you can dig deep in those moments that really shows if you've got it, what it takes to be a special forces soldier. So really that is the way that's put together is like 2 weeks on the Brecon Beacons. You've got ridiculous weights you're carrying over the mountains. You've got times to do it in, which is absolutely ridiculous. And a lot of people fail on that first hurdle. You know, I'd say
yeah.
you lose about 60% of the whole course in that 2 weeks.
Jesus.
Yeah, once you've actually passed that, I mean, to give you an idea, your feet are absolutely. You take your socks off at night, and you could bring them out with blood. You know, because your feet are just covered in blood, and you have to. Your first part of any march, each day is another march, another march, another march. Different terrain, different weights, different times, different distances. And each day, honestly, the first part of any march is just getting over the pain barrier of how your feet
Yeah,
are and any other muscles. You know, you're an absolute rag. And it's being able to push through, being able to block out all that pain and just, you know, focus on getting through it. Once you pass that, you then go to the jungle for 6 weeks. You actually spend around about 28 days totally immersed in the real depths of the jungle. And really, that is one of the. I absolutely. It's the hardest thing ever, but it's the best test for any soldier, because
yeah,
before you even come onto your soldiering, the administration about keeping yourself alive and making sure you don't get infected, and you know, a tiny graze can turn into a massive infection in a heartbeat.
yeah,
So you've got all that admin. You've got, you know, your weapon and everything. You've got to make sure it doesn't. You've got to make sure you're on top of that so it doesn't rust up and everything. The admin is absolutely insane, and then you've got to soldier on top of that. You know, so there's a lot of live firing drills. There's a lot of stuff going on, but really, it's pushing you and testing your mental robustness all the way through. Come back from that. If you pass the jungle, and that's another massive hurdle, they then start to really invest in you, I'd say. In fact, they do. They
yeah,
invest. And that's when they start giving you those basic skills so that you can join your team and be effective. You know, just in the, you know, if you have to go to war straight away, you could join your team and be effective straight away. So really, that's all about those skills. But then the last thing is the combat survival, which is the escape and evasion simulation. They call it a simulation, but honestly, it's horrendous, mate. It is
yeah,
horrendous. You know, you've got to escape from being hunted for 7 days. You then go into what's called the bag, which is 36 hours of interrogation. And, you know, people say, well, it's only a game. You know, when you're absolutely had nothing to eat for 7 days, you've totally fatigued, absolutely in rag. And one thing you say could change that whole decision on whether you're going to make it or not. You know, one that you could say yes at the wrong time when you're being
yeah,
interrogated. You could sign a piece of paper. You could do something when your mind, when you're not thinking. You have to be so sharp when you've got nothing, mate. Nothing. And one thing I'll say is, like, at the start of SAS selection, I was like, I got off the bus and I looked around me and I went, nah, this ain't for me. Looked around, everyone looked like super soldiers already. I was probably the skinniest there, and I thought, no, this is ridiculous. I'm going to set myself up for failure. Now, path of least resistance, get back on the bus, forget it.
go home, yeah,
A little voice in my head said, Ollie, just do today. And I kid you not, the whole course was done with that ethos, just do today. Just
yeah,
do. And when it came to interrogation at the end, that went down to a second. Just do,
really,
yeah, 36 hours, just do the next second, just do the next. You've got no sleep, no nothing. Interrogation, white noise, stress positions, it's horrible. And it's just do the next second. That was the hardest bit.
I mean, that's one hell of a job interview.
Yeah, especially when you can get to the end and they go, no, you're just not right.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, when essentially that's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's to get the job of being a special forces soldier, and when you compare that to you
Mm.
know us civvies where we go for a job interview and we might be there for half an hour. They're looking at a bit of paperwork and then they make the decision.
On
I mean,
Zoom
you,
these days.
yeah, well, do it on Zoom. Teams, other products are available,
Yeah.
uh, and you've gone through 6 to 9 months of
Mm.
hell, living minute to minute and pushing yourself for that.
Yeah.
I mean, when you actually got to the end and it was that decision of yes or no, did you did you care whether they said yes or no, or were you just kind of
Oh,
mentally, physically done?
well, actually, cut a long story short, but this was my second time. I actually did two of them
Okay,
back to back. Yeah, because
yeah,
first time round, we got to that escape and evasion part at the end, and
yeah.
we got caught doing something we shouldn't have been doing. So,
Okay,
yeah, we got in a civilian car and we went into a farmhouse, and you're not supposed to. Everyone does it, but it's about getting caught. Anyway,
yeah,
2 days to the end of that first selection, I got, well, five of us got binned and RTU'd returned to unit. And that was the hardest thing for me ever to come back. I had to do the whole course again. So by the
yeah.
time I did
Oh,
that
mate.
course again, I got to the end and I did give a shit. I did
Yeah,
really care if I was going to pass, it was yes or no, because after 2 years of putting myself through hell, I needed something positive to come from that.
yeah. Massively. I've read and I've listened to David Goggins' book, "Can't Hurt Me," where he talks about SEAL selection
Mm.
and buds and stuff, and the fact that he ended up doing it 3 times and was just broken. Absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
don't take this the wrong way, but why would any normal person want to put themselves through that for for a second time?
Yeah, well, it's the prize at the end, Matt. You know, at
Mm,
the end of the day, you want to be that minimal number of people counted in that tiny little arena,
yeah,
the best of the best. And regardless of SAS selection or anything in life, there is that innate thing in every person on this planet to do that. Not necessarily SAS selection, not SAS selection at all. But for us to, that's why you get people doing all these mad challenges and stuff like that. There's this innate drive within us to actually achieve a level of greatness in all sorts of realms of life. You know, and this is where I see
yeah,
a lot of problem with people, because when they don't have that, when they don't have anything that's driving them somewhere, as far as the mind's concerned, we're not making progress. We were put on this planet to experience, to make progress, to achieve stuff, have amazing experiences. And if you're not doing that, and you have this repeat monotony, this repeat habit loop of nothing, that's when people start to get those mental health issues. We've got
yeah.
nothing bigger driving them forward than the monotony of every day.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've kind of been there myself in like an old company I worked for where I had a very defined goal. I
Mm,
had literally four or five things I wanted to achieve, and I achieved them.
mm,
And then you kind of go, now what?
yeah,
And that no man's land is soul destroying
yeah,
because you don't know if you're progressing, you don't know if you're regressing,
yeah,
you don't know if you just stood still. So I completely kind of get that. So you completed selection.
yeah.
Is it then a selection of whether you go to SAS or SBF, or
No, you kind of make,
what's the next step?
yeah, you make your choice prior to, back in my day, you kind of went on selection and it was like, I'm going, you already sort of said, I want to go SBS or I want to go to the SAS. Now I came from the Royal Marines. That's where that's really the uh, sourcing ground for everyone that's going to the SBS. There's a lot more people coming through the ranks from different military units now, though, going into the SBS. But that was pretty much it. It was predetermined. But at the end of that, I could have said, "Look, I'll go to the SAS." I could have made that jump if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But for me, I mean, I've always loved water, and some of the toys the SBS have got are just far better. So,
It's all about the gadgets, isn't it?
yeah, mate, it was like, mini subs and all that. I just thought, I love that stuff. So that was a natural flow for me to go. So
Yeah.
I went further training. You do all your dive qualification, or you dive, on the rebreathers and everything else, and all the dive stuff. And that's for the next 3 months. You know, some people actually get to that phase and they realize they haven't got an aptitude for diving, and those people would then have an opportunity to go to the SAS, and vice versa. It's both ways.
Okay, so how was your time in the SBS then, and
Yeah,
with all the gadgets then?
yeah, no, it was absolutely amazing. I'm so humbled to be a part of that. It was an incredible experience. Now, for me, you know, I joined the military the special forces in a time when we look back now, which was relatively quiet. You know what I mean? There wasn't as much going on as there have been in the recent years, you know, with Iraq and then Afghanistan. So for me, although we did do jobs, I mean, a lot of our time was spent training. I mean, you're constantly training new skills, new tech. No, you know, it's a constant. And then you actually realize, you look back and think, bloody hell, selection was quite easy compared to this. You know, you language courses, medical courses, all kinds of different courses, new weapon systems, constantly training. You know, our specialist skill was combat frogmen, so we were diving a lot, attacking, you know, training to attack targets, like oil rigs, shipping, you know, all kinds of stuff. So it was incredible, mate. And then thrown in there, the odd jobs came in, you know, which weren't advertised on. You don't see advertised in the news and stuff. So they're the ones that, you know, they're the thing that you want. I was, you know, for me especially, I was like that's what I wanted. I wanted that every day, and it didn't come enough. So really, for me, you know, I lost interest. I lost interest again. As soon as I joined, I was just like, this is still something. There's still something missing, and I couldn't work it out. You know, I was never settled. I was never really, you know, because I thought once I get to there, that's gonna be me for the rest of my life. I can't imagine anything else I want to do. I'd already mapped it out in my head. You know, my life is going to look like this, and I got there, and it was very different. The reality and the perception, as it always is, was so far apart that I couldn't bridge that gap.
Well, again, it's like we said about the Instagram life versus reality. You know, people posting photos of glamorous dinners and stuff like that, when reality is they're just sat on their sofa at home, you know, in their scruffs, just
I know exactly.
Dragging up memories.
Flying planes and things like that, so they can have a private jet just to have a picture.
Yeah. Well, there was that supposed influencer, I think, got exposed once because she took a photo in business class, and then everybody in economy took photos of her, you know, in the middle of the row with the rest of them. So, you know, these things happen.
I love it.
So, okay, so past selection, did your time in the SAS, and then you left, or the SBS rather, and then you left.
Yeah,
that's got to be that had to be a big decision.
Yeah, it was, but the thing is for me, and I'm quite happy to say that I actually had my notice in to leave as soon as I joined.
Really?
Yeah, and you have to do back in that. I'm not sure what it's like now, but that's an 18-month notice period. So for my whole career, I'd like put my notice in to leave as soon as I could. 18 months would creep round, it'd get closer, and I'd have a change of heart. Yeah. No, I'm going to stick with it. And I did that for 6 years. So really for me, I negated the fact of ever getting a promotion because I was always leaving.
Yeah.
You know, and I was really just marking time in that 6 years. But when it came to it, something happened, something significant. I just went, nah, that's it. I'm going. You know, and really the only thing that kept me in is the fear of the unknown. You know, it's like, you know, and the grass is greener and all that kind of stuff. But really stepping outside that gate as a civilian, that's a hard thing to do, and it would prove particularly hard. Even my perception of it would be, I was top of my game, I'm going to go outside, I'm going to be top of my game out there. And a lot of military people get this wrong. I got it wrong. You have to take a step down before you stand back up again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not all, a lot of people, some people come out, they've got a path already laid out and this, that, and the other, but you have to have a clearly defined plan for when you come out, because if you don't, you're coming out to a massive void. All the camaraderie, everything's gone. There's a massive void there. Suddenly you're out there on your own. And if you don't have a clear definition or direction of where you're going, you go into a flat spin before you know it. I'll talk from my personal experience. You start drinking whenever you're not working, and you know, before you know it, you're out of control. And that for me was like, I said I'd never go back to a war zone. I want to start my own business. I want to do this, that, and the other. Pretty shortly afterwards, I was back in a war zone. You know, and I was out there. It was probably the most hideous times of my career, going back as a mercenary, for want of a better term, back out into Iraq as a contractor. The money was absolutely brilliant. That's the one thing that drew me out there, but it was probably the most hideous time in my career because I was drinking too much. I was taking Valium to handle the next day anxiety. We were being shot at, and when you were being shot at out there, you couldn't call in an airstrike, you couldn't call in naval gunfire from out at sea. You didn't have a highly trained team around you with all the weapon systems and all the skills in the world, which, you know, back in the day, you would have been like inviting that stuff to happen. But when you're a contractor out there in Iraq, where I was for 5 years, mate, it was a horrible experience. When you got attacked, it was like you didn't think you were going to get out of it. And that took me, and the reason I was drinking so much, you know, one of the reasons was, you know, I was living every day like it was its last. I didn't believe I was going to come home. So it was a nasty. When it comes to mental health and everything, my mental health just took a dive. And I couldn't see the severity of that issue because I was drowning it in a haze of alcohol. You know, it was like, yeah. So it was a bad place for me.
Yeah, mental health is a massive, massive thing these days, and it's great that it's being talked about more and more. We had a previous guest on. In fact, we've had a number of guests where we've talked about it. One really kind of sticks out because it kind of sounds similar, although special forces to a professional rugby player is a little bit different. But I mean, it was a guy called Reece Thomas who had a heart attack at 28 in training, needs a heart transplant, descended into drinking drugs and really kind of low ebbs. And you know, and thankfully, you know, he's gone to rehab and on all this. But mental health and let's face it, mental health amongst men, you know, whilst it's being more talked about now, it's still one of those things that and certainly I kind of think when you are part of a team, so like you're saying, coming out of the services and that camaraderie and things like that, and I think, you know, again with sports, when you retire or you leave or whatever, you've gone from having that close knit community and support, whether that is whether you're under fire or not. You kind of leave. You know, a few players have said to me that one of the hardest things is when they leave the WhatsApp chat for the team, because they don't have that kind of support and banter and constant. So kind of, I think it's one of those things that definitely needs to be talked about a lot more, because, you know, would you say that that's kind of one of the breaking points for people is when they do leave those environments?
Yeah, the thing is, I do talk about this a lot, and I do. I'm seen as an advocate for men's mental health, or mental health in general. But I think we're on a knife edge about how we're approaching it these days, and I think we've got to be so careful. Now, listen to me on this, right? The more we focus on anything, the bigger it will become.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm going to focus on problem, I will. Every person in this world can find problems in their life. But if I'm going to concentrate my effort to focusing on that problem, the bigger that will be. It will become bigger. The more we focus on anything, the bigger it becomes. So I think at the moment there seems to be this mental health. Focus. Before you know it, everyone will start to identify with issues.
Yeah.
And before you know it, we've got a bigger problem that we had originally. Now, I think there should no. You'll also relate to this message that's out there. It's okay to not be okay. I agree with that, but that doesn't mean that's an acceptance speech for failure. That doesn't mean that's an acceptance speech to just say, well, this is just normal, I'm going to just crack on.
Yeah.
That means it's okay to not be okay. Now what we're going to do about it. And that really, for me, takes us into what I call mental wealth. How are you investing in your mental wealth? That then is the answer to your mental health. There doesn't seem to be a lot about the solution. There seems to be a lot about the problem.
And that's one of the issues, isn't it? Is that everybody focuses on the problem, but not the solution.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with. It's okay to not be okay,
Yeah,
but what are you going to do about it?
exactly.
How do you move on? Because otherwise, I think, like we were saying, you're in that no man's land then
Mm,
of going, oh well, I'm not okay, and that's okay.
yeah,
But how do you move on? How do you actually move forward?
yeah.
And again, it's one of those things about, I've got one of the Rocky quotes on the wall over there somewhere saying about, it's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
and I think that's so true in all forms of life because, you know, yes, there are further extremes in terms of being a special forces soldier, being shot at left, right, and centre, and your life being on the line, or just coping with what's going on in the world these days. The energy crisis or cost of living and putting food on the table for your family. People need to take action and do something about it. So talk to me about your kind of advocacy for mental health and mental well-being.
Yeah. Well, really, for me, I mean, I talk from experience. I mean, my life fell apart. I actually, after this, after leaving the special forces, I then went on to working out in war zones. I then actually, when I left working in Iraq, because I knew I had to leave of my own accord, otherwise I would be leaving in a box. I was actually living in Australia at the time, and I started to get some stability in life. I was starting to like do some property development and stuff, and everything was sort of stable.
Mm.
But that for me, even at that time, that wasn't a good place either. You've got to imagine like a special forces soldier, they train you to be at flow in chaos.
Yeah.
I'm glad I can look back and reflect on this now, but hindsight didn't win any wars, but it's good for reflection. But for me, that didn't stop when I left. You can't switch it off. So I was looking for chaos in every aspect, in every facet of my life, and I found it. My relationships, my new job, I was fighting against everything, fighting against myself, it was just mayhem, absolute mayhem. And then anyway, when I got to Australia, I was still of that mindset where I wanted I needed that chaos, and
Yeah.
even I was hitting the drink heavily still, which was a real battle to try and, I knew it wasn't right. But to
Yeah.
stop just because it's, well, just stop then. Well, just because it's simple doesn't make it easy.
Yeah.
And I then came across something which would change my life, and that was going to Southeast Asia with as a part of an undercover team rescuing kids from child prostitution and slavery. Now, I had no idea of what that was going to give me, but that would be the thing that changed my life. And I wasn't getting paid for that. I used my own money to fund that operation. But it was the best return on investment I've ever had. And really, for me, we're rescuing these kids, getting them to an orphanage, and where we would have donations coming in from all over. But the thing went crashing down. There was a political situation. The thing came crashing down overnight. We had to escape out of Thailand. And before I knew it, I was back in Australia. All of a sudden, that thing that was missing in the special forces, that thing I couldn't find, I suddenly found it. It was just incredible. I was like, this is me. I'm going to be doing this for the rest of my life. I felt so humbled to be a part of it. So such a sense of purpose. And it disappeared. It dissolved overnight, and I ended up back in Australia with nothing, absolutely nothing, but a broken dream and this self-destructive behavior, which would then send me on a path of self-destruction, drink, drugs, everything I could get my hands on.
Yeah.
And it got to that point where when I got to my lowest ebb, and I can remember thinking about suicide. I was thinking about suicide far too often. I never attempted it. I don't know if I would, but the fact that you're there, that's a wake-up call, and I did have a voice in my head, the same one I've heard on selection, like just do today, saying it doesn't end like this, Ollie. And I was like, right, it has to stop. For the first time ever in my life, I took responsibility for where I was. I stopped blaming the external world for my situation. I stopped blaming events in my life that could have caused me to be where I was at, because regardless of what's happened to you, you're the only person that can change that. And when I was drinking and abusing myself and this, that, and the other, I only got myself to blame. So really, for me, that was a turning point for me. And that then forced me to look within. And that's where the answers were all along. You see, we think happiness and health and everything, this, that, and the other is all external. We're searching for it externally. I'd been bouncing around the world looking for this external experience that was going to make me feel fulfilled. And really, all the time, I needed to look within, because that's the person I needed to change my outside world. And that was such a turning point for me. So really, for me, that was about changing. You know, the more we focus on anything, the bigger it becomes. So I thought, what's the opposite of that? So I started to think about the person I wanted to be, what that person represented, what that person looked like, what it felt like to be that person. And that would be the one thing that got me out of this person that hated the world, hated myself, and was just abusing myself constantly. And that was such a transformation. It was that to me was like goal setting on steroids. It was like throwing that stone out of the bottomless pit of where I was and then chasing that stone. It was slow to get to it. And then as soon as I got to it, throw it again, keep on going, keep on going. But falling in love with that dream of what you wanted to represent and be and who, and what it looked like, what it felt like. And that's what I've never stopped doing that since. And I made so much progress in a small amount of time. I thought that is where, you know, I'd come back from helping those kids in Thailand. The power of helping other people is the best return on investment you'll ever get, especially when they're less fortunate. And also the fact I made such a monumental transformation of myself. I wanted to use that experience, to help other people and show people that they can change, regardless of their situation, they can change. And really, that was the birth of Breakpoint, you know, and that was the birth of, you know, my message for people suffering from mental health is no different from someone that really wants to achieve greatness and success in life. There's no difference. It's about having a clear direction of where you want to be and what that looks like. And that is the answer to everything. You know, a lot of people suffering with mental health, they're just in this monotonous habit loop and nothing. You know, the mind is just absolutely just 9 times out of 10, the mind is saying, God, I am just so tired of this monotonous life. It's as simple as making some fundamental changes that can change everything. So really, that was the turning point for me. And that was the start of Breakpoint.
You said at the start that we went off into a deep area. I mean, I think we've just kind of gone even further there.
Yeah.
But that's absolutely fantastic, because I think what you kind of talked about there is that when we do get stuck in that loop, we often blame other people. And like you said, we blame our say our upbringing, our working environments, our social situation, whatever's happening in the world, blah blah blah. You got to take, like you said, you got to take that responsibility. You've got to go, well, actually, I'm the one that's made these decisions up until this point. I'm the one that can make the decisions to turn left or turn right or carry on down this road. It's up to me. I'm the only one that can change my situation. You know, it's not waiting for, you know, your lucky numbers to come in on the lottery and become a millionaire, and all of a sudden money solves everything, because you'll find that money doesn't solve everything. You'll find that having that Lamborghini in the driveway doesn't solve everything. It probably creates even more problems until you sort out those, you know, those core issues, and sort out your destination. You're lost.
Yeah, 100%, mate. And I tell you what, the lottery winner is such a great example of that, because that lottery winner will be the person that then 12 months later will have no money whatsoever, because they haven't addressed who they are. You know, they've had something that's changed their external world massively, but if they haven't changed who they are, they will still drag through the same old issues. And before you know it, because they've come from that lack mindset, they will have that same amount of lack 12 months later. You know, you have to change you. If you want to change your outside world, you have to change you. That is just fact, absolute fact. But the thing is, it's not a natural thing to do. You know, the natural thing to do is to blame our environment. You know, the people, it's like going through lockdowns and everything. You know, the people and the businesses that survived and still doing well are the people that adapted to change. They were the chameleons of change. You know what I mean? It's not people that go, oh, well, we're just going to wait till the environment changes to suit our circumstances. Because you're waiting for something that's never going to happen. You know,
well,
it's mate. It's like, sorry to jump in, but
No,
it's like trauma as well. It's like a lot of people suffering with trauma, and they can't get over it. It's because they're trying to be the person they were before the trauma.
yeah,
Trying to get back to where they were. You're not that person anymore.
the door shut.
Yeah, the door's shut. And you've got to adapt to that change. And the more you strive for who you were, the more frustrated and the more confused you're going to be.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the same with lockdowns. It's like trying to be the business you were before lockdown, trying to be the person you were before. Everything's changed. You've got to change.
Yeah.
You've got to be that chameleon of change.
There's that great book, that really, really simple book, Who Moved My Cheese? If you, which is a prime example of what was it? Mice in a maze. One finds the cheese and then stays there because he thinks, right, I found the cheese.
Yeah.
But that's only going to last for a short amount of time. The other one goes off in search of the next and the next and the next. That progression, and I think it is dealing with change. Like you said, lockdowns. A lot of things happen in lockdowns. Whether it was business, whether it was mental health, whether it was just family life. Lots of things happen, but you have to deal with that change and that ever changing circumstance. I think lockdown just kind of poured a bit of gasoline on that kind of change fire. But actually, we were doing it. We have to move on and we have to do things anyway in life. Lockdowns or no lockdowns.
Yeah, so, it's like any business that doesn't adapt, isn't constantly changing, is going to be eaten up by the underdog. And it's the same with people. If you're not constantly changing and evolving, relative to our background or to the environment, we've got to be the ones that are making that change. So 100%.
Yeah. Well, Blockbusters, prime example. Didn't want to move into the streaming business because everybody rented DVDs and videos, and now what? How many streaming services are there out there, and how many Blockbusters are out there?
Yeah.
So talk to us about the TV program. I mean, before we kind of go into Breakpoint, what was it like being a TV star?
It was a hard transition, mate, to be quite honest, because first of all, with everything, I have got to see the purpose. I've got to understand the purpose of what I'm doing. Now, for me, initially when I started that process, it was like, what is my purpose? Why am I doing this? The reason I'm doing it is because to fuel my exposure for my business. So that was the driving force. When the first series came out on TV and I realized how they'd done the cut, how they'd done the edit, it wasn't about the military, it was about human psychology. And it really did start to address some really fundamental issues that every person is facing. And it was such a massive ripple effect across the whole of the UK. It was incredible. It then redefined my purpose to do that show, because I was like, wow, this is just incredible. It's so amazing to be a part of that. And it was good. But over time with the show, it's like initially it was brilliant because we had a lot of poetic license, because we said, look, we will do it. We will have our faces, revealed, providing it remains authentic to who we are and where we've come from.
Yeah.
Now, over the years, as it got more popular, more of that real estate was taken away from us. And some things were suggested to us that were quite preposterous. It's like, you just wouldn't, it's like, well, let's have an egg and spoon race. And you're like, you just wouldn't do
Yeah, but it's got to be over 24 hours over mountains.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, blindfolded. You know what I mean? It was like, you just wouldn't do that. I'm not saying that happened. I'm just using that as a metaphor. It's like that happened. That kind of stuff was happening. And it was like, I started really losing interest in it. And I was like, my mission statement when I came back to the UK before that show started, and it was like, lock myself in a house for 3 months, change the blueprint of who I was. And I worked on myself religiously every day. And I came up with my mission statement for Breakpoint, and that was to create a globally identified brand recognized for the positive growth and development of others. That's always been my primary. The TV stuff's a sideshow. Now, every time I went to do that show, my business went on hold.
Yeah.
It was like, and I started getting to the point where I was thinking, I'm losing my... we can easily be distracted from something that really, got something that we're so passionate about. My business wasn't turning over. great amounts of money or anything like that at that time. So what's the natural thing to do? It's go down a direction where something is paying more money.
Yeah.
But really that's taking, I don't have the passion for that. But so what you're at a crossroads. But I was going down that road doing the TV stuff and knowing the more I knew I was so passionate about Breakpoint that the more I invested in TV stuff, that this would then start to dissolve. And that then, at the time I was still working for SAS UK, doing the UK show. We then got the offer for SAS Australia. And in my head, I'm starting to think, wow, I can't even handle doing SAS UK. And then to commit to another one, I'm like, my business is going to fail. Before I know it, I'm so busy chasing the money that I'm too busy making a living to even create my own legacy and do what I set out to do. Luckily for me, and I say luckily, I got then dropped from SAS UK, which was, I still laugh at that phone call. And I laugh because in my head, this is why you can't fool the universe. You know, I'm big into the universe. Judge me for it. I don't really care. But this is, you know, I truly believe that it's like a bad relationship. You know, I was going through the motions of going away, filming. I wasn't enjoying it, but I was collecting the money. You can't lie. It's like a bad relationship. You like think, oh, I can't, you know, you start cheating on someone, you're not in love with them, whatever, you know, you just know it's a load of, oh, but I'm not going to say anything because I don't want to go through that short-term discomfort of breaking up. So, but you can't lie. That relationship will end up going absolutely. There's no line from that. You know, it will break up at some point.
Yeah, but it'll be 10 times worse.
Yeah, 10 times worse. You know, it's like a prolonged toothache that's going to turn into agony at some point. And for me, that was like that. You know, I got that phone call. I'm on the phone listening. I'm like, my ego's being hurt a little bit, but I'm thinking, you got exactly what you wish for. This is what you wanted. You know, I mean, this is, your soul wasn't in it, your heart wasn't in it. I'd never gone along and gone, you know what, keep your money, I'm not going to bother.
Yeah.
I mean, but it was the best thing that happened. And really for me, I then went over to SAS Australia, which was back to square one of having that poetic license, really working to have a marriage of this between the production and us. And it's been incredible.
Yeah.
And then that's allowed me with SAS Australia to still focus on Breakpoint, which is now doing incredibly.
So talk to us about Breakpoint then.
Yeah, Breakpoint. Now, we started off in the early days, 2015, you know, I set out, and when I'm in that house, start Breakpoint, this is what it's going to look like. Really, for me, it was about doing physical events that really tapped into the mindset. Now, then the TV show came about. I was like, wow, this is my one-off opportunity. This is going to be a one-off. It could be one series. I treat every series like it's the last one. So I planned my first event just after the TV show, around the TV show, so that we would capitalize on everyone wanting a piece of it. And that's where it all started. You know, it started as doing those physical events, and we moved from down south then up to north. You know, throughout the whole series of SAS, we were running the events, which was great. And then we sort of came up to the north. Well, when I say the north, Shrewsbury, where we ended up buying a big unit. We spent all our money like doing it. We had a gym, we had classrooms, everything. It was absolutely phenomenal. It was like brilliant. We're going to start doing veteran programs. We were doing this, that, and so many different things. That was when Battle Ready 360 started as well, our fitness app. And then lockdown. Smash. Which really for us, you know, it wasn't, you know, straight away, we were that chameleon of change. I mean, we turned the classroom into a studio. I then I was doing constant virtual sessions for corporate entities, you know, which I've not stopped doing. So that really helped the business survive all the way through. And we didn't have all the public events were, you know, they just, you know, the government kept kicking the can down the street. You know, we couldn't put them on, then we couldn't. In the end, we just went, enough's enough. Yeah. You know, we had more of a loyalty to our customers. We ended up giving 50 grand back of tickets and for events to all our customers. We were just like, until there's clear direction from the government, until we can stop messing our customers around through that, We're not doing anything else.
Yeah.
So really, what that did is push us into that virtual space. And again, that was something that was incredible, because all of a sudden we then realized that we didn't need the unit up there, you know, and how much we could have more of effect on a more of a global reach by doing everything online. You know, for me, I'm running an events company. Everyone wants to see me at the event. And while you're like that, you can't scale up. You know what I mean? You can't scale the business. So for me, we're now moving into that space where we've not stopped doing the events as such, but we've handed that side of the business over to someone we work with, who we contract to put the events on for us. So we are solely focused now on doing our online and virtual programs. We're having a portal being built now. So basically, you know, for corporates and any individual that wants to learn and grow and really get the best out of life, we'll have these mentoring programs, 3 months, 6 months, programs on resilience, programs on mindfulness, programs on all sorts of stuff, where I'll be hosting them. And then it's like tonight, you know, I've got a webinar on tonight. I've got over 1,200 people registered for that tonight. I can't reach that many people on a 60 people event over a weekend.
Yeah.
You know, I can't have that. You know, when it comes to making changes for people, you know, we used to have some people that came and it was so amazing for them. We pushed them into doing things that they weren't comfortable with. They walk out as different people. They'd meet a thriving community of people. It was like they became the Breakpoint family. But sustaining that or keeping continuity of that change, you then go back into your normal way of life. Before you know it, that all diluted. You're back to the same person you were. We need to make that effective change over a period of time, and that's what happened to me. For me, you know, I'm still at school. I'll still be at school. I've not even scratched the surface. You know, so really understanding that self-development and is a constant. We need to be constantly involved. We're constantly learning and growing. We have a duty to do that, and that is the way that we can reach people to do that. You know, what is Breakpoint? Breakpoint is a disruptive change in habitual behavior in line with a predetermined goal. 95% of our behavior is habitual. So it's changing the blueprint of who we are, but we can't do that unless we've got a predetermined goal. Again, we've talked about that. It's about knowing exactly where you're going and, you know, what's your aim point, where you're going, you know, and it's so important that we have that. So really, you know, that is what we're pushing out there now. We're so excited about that. And Breakpoint is going from strength to strength, and it will continue to do so. Luckily for me, I've also got Australia. So, you know, we've got coverage not only in the UK, but Australia. So it's you know, to create that globally recognized brand, which is part of the mission statement, that's going to come, it's coming to fruition. It's excellent. And it's the most fulfilling thing. Most fulfilling thing. And listen, one thing, I was talking about this yesterday to someone, to have someone that you've affected changing, just one person that sends you an email saying, I was about to take my life, I got your book, or I've been on one of your podcasts, you've changed my life. That there's nothing more fulfilling than that. There's nothing better than that.
It's the butterfly effect then, isn't it? You know, you've had that impact on someone, and you know that they're going to go and have further impacts on other people.
Yeah.
Because that one change can echo.
Exactly.
And it just reminds me of something a friend of mine says about success, whether it's in business or sports or whatever. It's a staircase.
Yeah.
Because if you jump to the top, so say like we said about winning the lottery, if you jump to the top, when you start to fall down the steps, you don't know how to get back up there because you've never done that. Whereas if you go on that step-by-step process and you talk about and you look at your mental well-being, your resilience, all of these different things, that when you do get knocked down, and let's face it, in life, shit happens.
Yeah.
So when you do get knocked down, you remember the steps to get you back up to where you were, but you're there, bigger, better, stronger. And
that's a great analogy.
And I think actually, you know, kind of what you're doing, it really does sound like you found your purpose. Going from the work you were doing in Thailand with those kids and kind of helping others. You know, fundamentally just helping others. It really does sound like you found your core purpose. Yeah. And that must feel amazing.
Oh, it does, mate. And then, like I say this to, you know, this is the topic I'm talking about tonight on my webinar. because a lot of people see, oh, they it sounds like quite a glamorous life, you know, special forces, they was on TV, and it sounds glamorous, but I want to tell people the truth. And it's like you mentioned on here, is there anything off bounds? No, absolutely not, because we need to help people and educate people through our own experience. And I want to tell people all the stuff in the cracks tonight, because I want them to understand. I want everyone on there will be able to relate to my story in some part of it. They'll be able to relate to. And if any one of them wants to improve, you know, has issues to deal with, I've got that. I can show them a way to do that. And also, you know, I have to build that parallel, because if you don't, then you're just a special forces soldier that everyone thinks is cut from a different cloth, carved in marble from another planet. You know what I mean? All that stuff. And it's not true. You know, bleeding just like everyone else. And the more I can do to initiate change in people, that is the, you know, I feel so honored to be able to do that. It's, you know, and a lot of people can reflect on that. A lot of people can reflect in their everyday jobs. Instead of thinking about just doing this to pay for the bills and pay the mortgage, pay the finance, start to think about how your job is helping other people, how your job is in the service of others. And that, just thinking on that level, instead of thinking about this is just a means to paying the mortgage, that will start to change everything. It's just a case of reframing it.
Definitely. Well, I was thinking that if you are just doing something for the money, then you're in the wrong job.
Mate, let me just say on that, because I tell you what, again, I left the military, and one of the main reasons I left the military, because I didn't have enough money. I couldn't live. My money was gone within the first 2 weeks of getting paid. It was just ridiculous. Not everyone was saying, I didn't understand how people could live on it. So when I came out, my whole focus was money, money, money. That's why I ended up back in a war zone.
Yeah.
You know, I was being paid ridiculous amounts of money. There was no tax because it was a war zone. It was incredible. But I was still in that, I was still no wealthier. And I was always chasing money. Money was I was money's bitch. I was in the back seat and I was money's bitch. Now, when I did that job in Thailand, which I wasn't being paid for, like I say, the best return on investment ever, that changed everything, because for the first time in my life, and that's where Breakpoint stemmed from, I was more passionate about what that meant to me than the money. I mean, there was no money in it anyway.
Yeah.
But that was so much more powerful than any kind of money.
Purpose.
Became Breakpoint. Then that changed everything for me. I was no longer money's bitch. You know, at the end of the day, money is a tool for you to not only have freedom in your life to be able to experience, but it's a tool to be able to grow your business. And your bitch.
Well, so the guy that said about the staircase, I will name him, the guy called Crosley, also has said to me before about money, in terms of comparing it to David Attenborough and the gorillas.
Yeah.
So if David Attenborough went chasing after the gorillas would run away.
Yeah.
But if you do things in the right way and you build up that relationship, it's the law of attraction. Then they will come to you. And I think if you always go chasing after money, and I've seen this in business loads of times where people go and do things for the money, and actually it costs them a lot more, not only financially but also personally, because they've chased it. And that's the wrong thing then. Like you said,
your desperation for something is exactly the same energy as your negative behaviors around it. So there's no difference. Being negative about something is absolutely the same energy as being desperate for something. It's resistance. It's all resistance. And again, you know, I'm big on the law of attraction. You know, a lot of people say to me, do you believe in the law of attraction? The law of attraction is working for everyone on this planet. We become what we think about. So just think about that. You know, everything that you're receiving is because that's what you think about. And you know, the law of attraction works for every person on this planet. There's no, you know, some people don't. Some believe and some don't. It's working for everyone. So
absolutely, and it can also work negatively as well, because if we go looking for a problem, like we said earlier, you will find one because you're looking for it.
Regardless of whether you're positive and negative, it's working for you. Law of attraction.
Absolutely.
You negative things and you focus on negative things, the bigger they'll become. You'll get more of the same. It is 100% fact. And some people think that's woo-woo and it's out there. It's not. It is 100% fact.
Well, it's simple science, isn't it? And it can easily be described or explained in terms of you want a new car, you set your heart on a new car, and you know what? You then start to see it everywhere.
Yeah.
You know,
So it's always been there, but you start to
yeah,
see it.
yeah. I always said, years and years ago, right? Oh, younger, I wanted an Audi, and I wanted a black Audi, and guess what? You start seeing then. You start seeing it everywhere. Yesterday, I didn't see it at all, but now because I've said that I want it, it's there. But
Exactly.
mate, we could talk for hours and hours and hours on
Yeah.
on loads of stuff, and look, I'd love to get you back on,
Yeah.
and
Let's do that.
definitely. We'll put your links to Breakpoint, Battle Three. I mean, we haven't even covered your books. I've even got one here, and we haven't even really
Do that
talked
next
about it.
time. We can do that next time.
Definitely. Look, it's been absolutely fantastic having you here. Look, if I had to kind of push you for one tip that you could give people out there, regardless of whether it's business, personal, whatever, what would you say to them?
I'd say, first of all, the answers are within, not external. Simple as that. The answers are
Yeah,
within. And you are the most important project there is. And the more you invest, the best, it'll be the best investment you ever make.
there you go. That's perfect. Absolutely perfect. Ollie, it's been an absolute privilege to have you on here. Like I said, we'll definitely get you back
Yeah.
for another episode because we've got to talk about your books and how
Yeah.
you got into writing and all of that, because that's just going to be fascinating as well. But thank you very much for joining us today. Everyone at home watching, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Make sure you check out Breakpoint. Go and check out his books as well. We will talk about them. But no, we'll put your links and everything into the descriptions and push traffic your way. But thank you very much for joining. Everyone at home, thanks for watching.